That can of bug spray sitting in your garage right now, the active ingredient inside it starts breaking down the moment you screw the cap back on. You spray it, you get maybe an hour, 90 minutes if you're lucky, and then you're standing there in the dark, slapping at your own arms, wondering where it all went. The plants I'm about to walk you through don't break down, they don't run out, they don't need to be reapplied, they don't wash off in sweat, and they don't quit on you the second the sun goes down. They protect your yard every single hour of every single day for the entire summer, and a handful of them will cost you less than what you'd spend on one coffee. There's one plant on this list, and I'm going to back this up with actual published research. Not a hunch, not a folktale that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends by name, sitting right alongside the laboratory chemicals the big brands build their whole business around. A plant, a living thing in a $4 nursery tray, recommended by the same federal agency that tracks disease outbreaks across the country. And you've been handing your money to the bottle this whole time, 11 plants total. By the time this video ends, you are going to know exactly which ones belong in your yard, the precise spot to put each and every one of them so they actually do their job, and the real specific biological reason each plant works. Not they smell nice, the actual mechanism. Because once you understand why a plant repels a mosquito, you stop guessing and you start building something that genuinely works. Now do me one favor before we go a single step further. Drop a comment and tell me what state you're watching from. I mean it. Type it in right now. Because the growing zone you live in completely changes which of these 11 plants will explode with growth for you, and which ones you'll want to handle a little differently. Somebody in Florida is going to grow these in the ground year-round. Somebody in Minnesota is going to grow a few of them in pots and bring them inside. I'll be calling out specific USDA growing zones the entire way through this video, so when I land on yours, that's your signal, that's your plant, write it down. Plant number 1, American beautyberry. You have almost certainly driven past this plant 1,000 times in your life and never once known what it was capable of. For generations, farmers across the rural South had a habit nobody could fully explain. They'd snap off a leafy branch of this shrub, crush the leaves between their hands, and tuck the bruised foliage up under the harness of their mules and their horses, and the biting flies and the mosquitoes that tormented those animals would back off. It was pure folk knowledge, passed quietly from one generation to the next with no science behind it, just the simple observation that it worked. Then, the United States Department of Agriculture decided to find out why. Government chemists pulled the plant apart in the lab and isolated a compound inside the leaves called calicarpinol. And when they tested that compound against live mosquitoes under controlled conditions, calicarpinol held its own as a genuine repellent, standing right up next to the synthetic standards the industry relies on. Think about what that means. The plant your great-grandparents trusted on nothing but instinct turned out to be carrying a legitimate lab-confirmed mosquito repellent in its leaves the entire time. And it took a federal research lab to finally explain the thing those old farmers already knew in their bones. Here's how you put it to work. American beautyberry is hardy across USDA zones 6 through 10, which sweeps in most of the South, the Mid-Atlantic, and a wide band of the lower Midwest. It's a native shrub, and that's a gift because native plants are built for your local conditions. Once it settles into the ground, it asks almost nothing of you. It tolerates partial shade where a lot of plants sulk, and it shrugs off summer drought like it's nothing. Plant it as a loose, informal hedge along the edge of your property or anywhere your maintained yard meets the wild tree line, the brush, the fence row. That border is exactly where mosquitoes gather and stage themselves in the shade before they come drifting across the lawn looking for you and your family. You're putting the repellent right at the staging ground. And here's your bonus, because almost every plant on this list pulls double or triple duty. In late summer, American beautyberry erupts into thick clusters of berries. In a violet so electric, it almost looks artificial. And the songbirds in your area lose their minds over them. So that one shrub is repelling the insects you can't stand while feeding the cardinals, and the mockingbirds you actually want hanging around. One plant, a living fence against mosquitoes, and a bird feeder that never needs refilling. Plant number 2, lemon thyme. Most people grow thyme for the kitchen, snip a little for a roast, and never give it another thought. Lemon thyme is a different animal, and the difference comes down to its chemistry. This variety carries a heavy load of 2 compounds, citronellol and thymol, and together they go to work directly on a mosquito's sense of smell. And smell is everything to a mosquito. Understand this, and you understand the whole list. A mosquito doesn't spot you across the yard with its eyes. It hunts you by tracking the invisible plume of carbon dioxide you breathe out, and the cocktail of scent compounds rising off your warm skin, and it follows that plume in like a thread leading straight to a meal. Citronella frays that thread to pieces. It floods the air with a competing scent so strong that the mosquito can no longer pick your signal out of the noise. The thread snaps, the mosquito loses you completely, and it drifts off to find an easier target somewhere your protection doesn't reach. You haven't killed it, you've simply made yourself invisible to it, which honestly is even better because the mosquito just leaves. Lemon thyme is tough as nails, hardy across USDA zones 5 through 9, and it grows low and spreading rather than tall, which makes it just about perfect as a living ground cover. Tuck it into the gaps between the stepping stones on your garden path. Let it tumble over the edge of a raised bed. Run it along the front lip of your patio where the pavers meet the grass. And here is exactly why that placement is so smart. Every single time a shoe or a pant leg or a passing ankle grazes across those leaves, it crushes them just slightly, and that releases a fresh puff of citronella oil straight up into the air, right where you're standing and breathing. You are constantly refreshing your own invisible shield without doing a thing, just by living in your yard and walking around it. And it's still time at the end of the day, so on your way back to the kitchen, you pinch off a sprig for tonight's dinner. The plant defending your patio is the same plant seasoning your chicken. Plant number 3, bee balm. Bee balm, which you'll also see sold as wild bergamot or under its botanical name monarda, is one of the great overlooked native treasures of the American garden. Crush one of its leaves between your fingers and you'll catch a scent somewhere between sharp oregano and bright citrus. And that aroma is 2 well-studied repellent compounds, thymol and geraniol, lifting off the foliage and into the air around the plant. But here's the part that makes bee balm genuinely special, and it's a little bit of natural magic. The exact same compounds that send mosquitoes packing are completely ignored by bees, by butterflies, and by hummingbirds, who absolutely swarm those shaggy, firework-shaped flowers from the moment they open until frost. So you are accomplishing 2 opposite jobs with a single plant at the same time, driving away the insects that want to bite you while rolling out an irresistible feast for the pollinators. Your entire garden quietly depends on to set fruit and seed. There is hardly another plant that threads that needle so cleanly. Bee balm is hardy across an enormous range, USDA zones 3 through 9, which means the overwhelming majority of you watching can grow it, and it comes back fuller and thicker every single year once it's established. It does appreciate a little breathing room and good airflow around its stems, so resist the urge to cram it into a tight corner, give it space, and it'll reward you. Plant a generous sweeping drift of it in the open ground between your seating area and the rest of the lawn, and what you've built is a tall, fragrant, flowering wall, a barrier that mosquitoes hesitate to push through and that pollinators simply cannot stay away from. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, this right here is the moment to fix that. Not at the end of the video now, while it's in front of you. And let me give you the honest reason it actually matters, because I'm not going to insult you with a vague smash that button. YouTube decides who gets shown my videos, and the system leans hard toward putting them in front of people it already recognizes as regular viewers. If you watch this entire thing and never subscribe, the algorithm quietly files you away as somebody who wasn't that interested, and the next video exactly like this one may never reach you at all. I put out practical, science-backed, straight-talking content like this every single week, the kind of honest information the spray companies would frankly prefer you never stumbled onto. So tap subscribe right now while you're thinking about it and keep the door open between us. Plant number 4, lemon eucalyptus. This is the one I promised you at the very start of the video, so lean in for this. Lemon eucalyptus produces an aromatic oil, and inside that oil sits a compound known as PMD. Now here is why that one little compound is such a big deal. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention keeps a short, carefully vetted list of repellent ingredients it considers genuinely effective at protecting people from mosquitoes. And if you read down that list, nearly every name on it is a synthetic laboratory chemical. There is exactly one plant-derived ingredient that earned its way onto that list, and it comes straight out of this tree. Sit with that for a second. A federal health agency, the same organization that monitors disease outbreaks nationwide, examined a substance that grows naturally on a leaf, and concluded in writing that it works. That is not a marketing slogan printed on a bottle. That is not grandma's back porch remedy. That is a recommendation from the government's own scientists, and it points directly at a plant you can grow yourself. The tree grows tall and is hardy outdoors in USDA zones 9 through 11. So if you're down in Florida, along the Gulf Coast, in Southern California, or out in Hawaii, you can plant it straight into the ground as a dramatic, fast-growing specimen tree that perfumes your whole yard. Everywhere colder than that, you simply grow it in a large container and bring it indoors before the first hard frost. The same way you'd overwinter any tender plant, then move it right back outside in spring. Set that container near where you actually sit. Brush your hand across the leaves as you walk past, and that clean, lemony oil lifts up into the air all around your seating space. And the scent itself, sharp and bright and citrusy, is honestly one of the most pleasant things you will ever have growing on a deck. Your guests will comment on it before they ever realize it's the reason nothing is biting them. Plant number 5, garden sage. Sage is the quiet secret weapon of anyone who truly knows how to run a fire pit or a grill. Growing peacefully in the bed, doing nothing in particular, sage still gives off a low, steady background level of camphor and other aromatic oils that mosquitoes already find unpleasant, so it earns a spot just standing there. But the real trick, the thing almost nobody takes advantage of, is what happens when you burn it. Toss a small bundle of dried sage leaves onto the glowing coals of your fire pit or right onto the hot grates of your grill, and the heat instantly releases a thick, fragrant, aromatic smoke that mosquitoes will simply not fly through. Researchers who've actually measured this have watched mosquito activity in the immediate area collapse the moment those leaves begin to smolder and smoke. And think about how clean this approach is. You are not coating your skin in anything. You are not misting the patio furniture with a spray. You are doing exactly what human beings have done around their fires for thousands and thousands of years, letting the smoke stand guard, except now you know precisely which plant to feed the flames. Garden sage is a hardy perennial right across USDA zones 5 through 9. It craves full sun and it tolerates dry, lean soil beautifully, which means once it's in the ground, it essentially looks after itself and asks for almost nothing in return. Plant a few bushes near your fire pit or your main seating area and let them grow out big and woody over the season. Then, as you trim and harvest through the summer, set those clippings aside somewhere dry so you always have a handful of leaves ready to throw on the coals when the evening turns and the mosquitoes start testing the perimeter. One single plant, a kitchen seasoning, a tough perennial that returns every year, and a smoke screen against biting insects, all from the same bush. Plant number 6, holy basil. You may know this one by its other name, tulsi, and it has earned its place in your yard for a whole stack of reasons that go well beyond mosquitoes. Though the mosquito story is the headline today, and it's a good one. Holy basil is absolutely loaded with eugenol, the same warm, clove-like compound responsible for its distinctive, almost spicy fragrance. And eugenol doesn't just hold adult mosquitoes at a polite distance. Research on this plant has shown that its oil can actually interfere with mosquito larvae as they try to develop in standing water. Stop and think about why that is such a different and powerful thing. Almost every repellent product on the market, every spray, every candle, every clip-on gadget, only ever deals with the adult mosquito that's already in the air buzzing around your ear. This plant reaches back a stage earlier and goes after the problem at the nursery, the breeding water itself. So if you've got a bird bath, a rain barrel, a clogged gutter you keep meaning to clear, or any low, forgotten corner of the yard where water pools and sits for days after a storm, setting a few pots of holy basil nearby does 2 jobs at once. It shields your seating area from the adults, and it quietly works against the next generation before those mosquitoes ever hatch out and take their first flight. It grows fast and easy in a container, which is exactly how I'd recommend most of you handle it. Set 1 pot right in the center of your outdoor dining table and 1 more at each end of the patio for a continuous line of protection. And holy basil has been brewed into a calming aromatic tea in its native regions for centuries, valued as much for steadying the mind as for anything else. So that same humble pot of leaves is repelling mosquitoes, working against larvae, and giving you a soothing cup before bed. 3 jobs, 1 plant, 1 pot, 1 plant, 1... Have you ever kept a few pots of herbs out on the porch, some basil, a little mint, a pot of rosemary, and noticed almost by accident that the bugs seem to leave that one particular corner alone? And did you just shrug it off as a coincidence and move on? Tell me about it in the comments, because I would bet real money that a great many of you have been quietly, unknowingly protecting yourselves with your own herb garden for years and never once connected those two dots. That is exactly the kind of hidden, practical, hiding in plain sight knowledge this whole channel exists to dig up and hand to you. Plant number 7, lantana. Lantana is the unglamorous workhorse you have absolutely seen blooming in gas station and parking lot landscaping 100 times, the plant nobody looks at twice, and it has been hiding a real talent the entire time. Studies that have examined lantana have found that extracts from its flowers can hold mosquitoes off for a genuinely meaningful stretch of time. And on top of that, the plant itself blooms relentlessly, tirelessly through heat that would lay almost anything else flat on the ground. That toughness is precisely the point, and it's what makes lantana so useful strategically. Picture the hottest, sunniest, most punishing corner of your yard, the spot where you've watched plant after plant give up and die, the baked patch of ground where nothing wants to grow and mosquitoes love to lurk in whatever afternoon shade they can find nearby. That brutal corner is exactly where lantana thrives and shows off. It's grown as a returning perennial in USDA, zones 9 through 11, and as a cheerful one-season annual everywhere colder, and it pumps out dense clusters of flowers in fiery reds, hot oranges, sunny yellows, and rich purples from spring straight through to frost without slowing down. Butterflies adore it, so it brings life and color along with its protection. Planted in thick, generous masses along a hot fence line or the sun-blasted edge of your seating area, where it gives you a solid wall of nonstop color and a working repellent barrier in the same stroke. One quick honest note, because you always get the straight story from me. The berries and leaves of lantana are not meant to be eaten. So if you've got small grandchildren who put everything in their mouths or curious pets who like to graze on greenery, simply place it somewhere they won't be tempted to nibble and you're completely in the clear. Plant number 8, lemon verbena. If you want the single best-smelling plant on this entire list, and I don't say that lightly, this is the one, lemon verbena leaves carry a powerful, concentrated dose of citral, the compound behind that intense, almost candy-sweet lemon fragrance that hits you the instant you touch it. And that very same citral is precisely what mosquitoes cannot tolerate. What smells like heaven to you reads to a mosquito as a thick, blinding fog it can't navigate through. A wall of citrus that completely masks the scent of you standing right behind it. Brush against the plant as you pass, or run 2 or 3 leaves through your fingers and the oil lifts instantly into the surrounding air. No crushing ritual required. Lemon verbena is a tender perennial, happiest planted right in the ground in USDA zones 8 through 11, and grown as a potted plant you bring indoors for the winter everywhere colder. It loves a full day of sun and pays you back with fast, lush, generous growth. Set it in a big, handsome container right beside your favorite chair, the seat you always end up in, so that every single time you sit down, you brush the foliage and wrap yourself in a protective citrus cloud without even thinking about it. And here's your bonus on this one, and it's a generous one. Those same fragrant leaves make an absolutely extraordinary herbal tea, bright and lemony and soothing, and they double as a completely natural air freshener for the house. A small handful dried out in a bowl will quietly perfume an entire room for weeks. So you've got a mosquito barrier, a teacup, and a potpourri all growing out of one pot on your deck. This channel runs on one simple promise, and I want to be clear about it. Every single week, real natural solutions backed by actual research, never something I'm trying to sell you. No gimmicks, no fear-mongering, just solid information that genuinely changes how you use your home and your yard. But I'll give it to you straight. None of that reaches you reliably unless you're subscribed. If you've pulled even one useful idea out of this video so far, even one plant you're going to go buy this weekend, then that's the trade and it's a fair one. One tap of the subscribe button costs you absolutely nothing, and it makes certain the next video finds its way to you. Go ahead and do it now, then come right back, because the next plant is a personal favorite. Plant number 9, floss flower. Floss flower, which you'll most often spot wearing the label ageratum at the garden center, is a low mounding plant blanketed in soft, fuzzy powder blue and purple blooms, and gardeners have leaned on it as a mosquito edging plant for generations, long before anyone could explain it. The reason it works is a compound it naturally produces called coumarin That sweet, fresh-cut hay scent some of you will recognize the moment you smell it, and mosquitoes root themselves right around it rather than push through. It stays compact and tidy and well-behaved, which is exactly what makes it such an ideal living border. Line it along the front edge of a flower bed, run it in a neat ribbon around the base of your deck or porch, or ring it around the bases of your other potted plants as a low, protective flowering skirt. It blooms its heart out all season with almost no fuss from you, and it handles full sun as happily as it handles a bit of afternoon shade, so it fits almost anywhere you need an edge. One honest heads up, though, because you deserve the complete picture and not just the good parts, this is a plant to enjoy with your eyes and your nose, not one to crush onto your skin. So let it do its work from the soil, standing guard as a fragrant border, rather than rubbing the leaves on your arms the way you might with some of the others on this list. Planted as that low protective edge, it is just about as easy and as effective as a flowering border gets, and it knits the whole defensive layout together at ground level. Plant number 10, wormwood. Wormwood, a member of the silvery artemisia family right alongside its well-known cousin mugwort, is one of the single oldest insect-repelling plants in all of recorded human history, and that long track record is no accident. Its fine, feathery, silver-gray foliage releases a strong, bitter, deeply herbaceous scent that flying insects steer well clear of, and gardeners have planted it as a protective living barrier for many centuries across many cultures, all of whom arrived at the same conclusion independently. The plant is rugged almost to a fault, hardy right across USDA zones 4 through 9, and completely unbothered by poor soil, blistering heat, or extended drought, which makes it close to indestructible once established. And that striking silver foliage isn't just functional. It looks genuinely beautiful planted against the darker greens of the rest of your garden, catching the light at dusk. Set it along the outer perimeter of your yard as a true frontline barrier, the very first thing a mosquito drifting in from the neighbor's lot encounters long before it ever gets close to where you're sitting. There's also a wonderful old-time trick worth knowing. Cut a few of the stems, hang them somewhere dry to cure for a week or two, and then tie those dried stems into small bundles and hang them near your doorways, your porch posts, and your window frames, where the lingering scent quietly discourages insects from settling in those spots. One honest note here as well, because the rule holds across these stronger plants, wormwood's oils are potent stuff, so this is a plant to grow and enjoy for its scent and its silvery good looks, not one to rub directly onto your skin. As a standing barrier and a hanging bundle, though, it is tough, beautiful, and tested by literally thousands of years of use. Plant number 11, tansy. This is the one that almost no mosquito video ever bothers to mention, and honestly, that's a shame because tansy carries one of the longest and most documented track records of any repellent plant in North America. Early American settlers planted it deliberately right beside their doorways and packed it thick around their windows for the specific purpose of keeping flies and mosquitoes out of the house. And they tucked it into stored linens and even around preserved meat to drive insects away from anything they wanted to protect. It produces bright, cheerful, button-shaped yellow flowers above ferny, fern-like foliage that is genuinely handsome in a border, so it earns its keep-on looks alone, and the whole plant gives off a sharp, clean, camphor-like aroma that insects make a point of routing around. It's a vigorous, hardy perennial across USDA zones 4 through 8, and I do mean vigorous, so I'm going to strongly recommend you keep this one in a container or a tightly contained bed, because given open ground and no boundaries, it will happily march further across your yard than you ever invited it to. Containment is the one rule, follow it, and it's nothing but a pleasure. And here is the honest note you've come to expect from me by now. The same straight talk every time. Tansy is strictly for outdoor repelling and ornamental use. It is not something to eat or take internally, and it's one to keep clear of during pregnancy. Grown as a contained doorway and border plant, exactly the way those settlers used it 200 years ago, it is a beautiful, effective, old-world guardian standing watch over your home. So now let me show you how all 11 of these plants work together, because this is the part most people miss entirely, and it's where the real power lives. The secret was never in any one single plant, it's in the layout, the layering, the system. So picture your yard arranged in 3 distinct rings, working from the outside in. Your outer ring is the front line, your first line of defense. That's your American beautyberry, your wormwood, your lantana, and your floss flower, planted along your property edges and across your hottest, sunniest perimeter. Their job is to intercept mosquitoes out at the boundary before those insects ever close the distance and reach the space where you and your family actually live and relax. You're stopping the problem at the fence line. Your middle ring is the buffer zone. That's your bee balm, your garden sage, and your tansy, filling in the open space between that outer perimeter and the patio where you actually sit. This is the dense, fragrant, layered heart of the system, a thick band of competing scents that any mosquito that somehow slipped past the front line now has to fight its way through, and most of them simply won't. And your inner ring is your personal protection, the close-in layer right on top of you. That's your lemon thyme spilling around the edges of the patio underfoot, your lemon eucalyptus and your lemon verbena standing in pots right beside your chairs, and your holy basil sitting on the table in front of you. Every one of them quietly releasing its oils into the few precious feet of air where you and your loved ones are actually breathing, talking, and unwinding. 3 rings, 11 plants, a single living shield that stands on duty while you grill, while you sit out at dusk, while the grandkids tear around the yard, and even while you sleep with the windows open. And listen, if you're in your 50s, your 60s, or beyond, let me say this plainly because it's the truth. You have spent more than enough summers retreating indoors at the first whine of a mosquito, and more than enough money on can after can of spray that quit on you inside the hour. You have earned the right to sit out on your own porch at dusk without slapping at your own arms every 30 seconds. You've earned the cookout that doesn't break up early because everyone got eaten alive. You've earned the long, quiet, peaceful evening outside that lasts exactly as long as you want it to and not 1 minute less. So subscribe to this channel. It's free, it stays free, it will always be free. And every single week, I'll keep bringing you exactly this, real, natural, honest ways to get more out of your home, your yard, and your garden. Now, I genuinely want to hear from you, so let's fill up these comments. Of all 11 of these plants, which single one are you putting in the ground first? And what's your reason for choosing it? And if you've ever tried any natural mosquito fix before, a homemade spray, an essential oil, an old trick your mother or grandmother swore by, anything at all, tell me exactly how it went down in the comments. Did it actually work or did it flop? What would you do differently next time? I promise you there is somebody scrolling through these comments right now who needs to read your answer before they waste their money. And do one more thing for me before you go. Send this video to that one person in your life who fights the mosquitoes every single summer and loses every single time. You don't even need to write anything, just send the link. You already know exactly who that person is. Now get out there and go build that yard. I'll see you in the next one.